war. War never changes.
Kurt knew the tragedies of war at first hand. In 1944, he was sent over to Europe as an advanced infantry scout, where he fought in the infamous Battle of the Bulge. After the gruesome battle, he became a prisoner of war and was kept in Dresden and was there to witness the grave tragedy that would be called the Dresden firebombing of 1945, which lasted 2 days. When returning home, he tried to go back to his everyday life, but the war continued to haunt him. He describes in the first chapter of the novel that writing about the Dresden bombing became a personal goal of his. The war haunted Vonnegut for much of his life, and despite his desire to write about Dresden, he found it hard to bring himself to relive all the details of such a horrific experience.
The first known war took place in 27,000 BCE. War has always been a part of human history. They've been fought over women, land, politics, and religion. Humans can find anything to fight over. No matter what's being fought over, the end is the same: destruction and death. In the 243 years America has existed, it has been involved in conflicts for 226 of those years. War does not just affect those involved, it also often affects civilians. In World War II alone, 75 million people died. 40 million of them were civilians. War doesn't care who the guilty party is. Millions of innocents have died. As technology advances, war is able to take even more lives. Mass bombings like the Dresden bombing killed at least 35,000 people and at most 135,000 people in 2 nights. Dresden was a city full of civilians. It was barely even involved in the war, but they didn't care because in war it's about who can destroy the most, who can take away the most. A war only ends after one side is so utterly destroyed they either surrender or no longer exist.
The peace movement started in 1960, and the constant outrage of America staying within the Vietnam War sparks resonance with World War II veterans. This decade is the perfect time for Kurt Vonnegut to write his message of anti-war. Protesters of the decade could relate to Kurt's message as he sprinkled in philosophy of nihilism and the genre of sci-fi. The genre of sci-fi was chosen because of the space race the US and Russia were involved in because of the Cold War. Along with the Vietnam War came a huge spike in distrust of the government. People couldn't believe the government would commit such atrocities. Vonnegut took this distrust and showed the people evidence that yes, the government is doing this, and they've done it before through his description of Dresden. The novel revealed the truth of war and its brutality to Americans, allowing them to view Vietnam and other future wars with their eyes wide open. Vonnegut's novel impact goes beyond just the Vietnam War. Its message remains relevant to every war. Nihilism was very present when people radically protested against the government to end war for peace.
The futility and inevitability of war shines through as conflicts continue to occur. Leaders of countries continue to find different reasons for conflict, some better than others. The U.S. often gets involved in many wars based on protecting others or themselves from those that harm them. The outcomes of many wars have worsened some situations or gone horribly wrong. The Vietnam War started as the U.S. trying to stop the spread of communism, but ended with a devastating loss, as many confirmed kills were civilians. The U.S. has a budget of $716 billion for national security, $686 billion of that for the Department of Defense. With such high funds going into the military, the government must be anticipating more wars than we need. More wars will lead to more death. Society should be teaching the future to solve problems through peace and communication, not bloodshed.
So it goes.